Look, I'm from Southside Jamaica, Queens. I don't like Supreme. I don't like priming him, but he lived the way he actually projected himself. His lifestyle is consistent.
He was true to it.
He never ratted on nobody, just like that. You see what I'm saying? And Jimmy's a different kind of guy. He told everybody. He solved the last 10 years of criminal activity in New York City. 10 minutes. The DA said, hold on, chill out, stop. Stop, boy. You're going to make it like I don't even work. The DA asked him to stop. Stop, man. You're going to make like we're not even working here.
If you're wondering who is the man who solved the last 10 years of criminal activity in New York in 10 minutes, well, let me introduce you to Jimmy James Roseman Henchman. Jimmy Henchman's story is one of the biggest ironies in hip-hop history. He was at one time one of the most feared or dangerous men in the rap game. But in the end, well, according to 50 Cent, the Henchman ended up being a snitch. But nevertheless, Jimmy might be the catalyst that started the East Coast-West Coast rivalry that eventually led to the death of Biggie and Tupac. Stick with me, fam, and I will connect the dots for you in a bit. You see, Jimmy was born in Harlem, but raised in the Vanderveer Gardens apartment complex in Flatbush, Brooklyn. Jimmy Henchman and his 4 siblings were raised by their mother, as she and her husband had divorced when the children were very young. Unfortunately, it didn't take long for Jimmy to drop out of school. As a young kid in the streets of Old Brooklyn, Jimmy Henchman ran with the crew called the Untouchables. And even from a young age, Jimmy just couldn't stay out of trouble. Unfortunately, he was stuck in a vicious cycle where he was hopping from one charge to prison, and then months after he left prison, he would be picked up for another charge. By the age of 16, he had already caught 2 gun charges, and he ended up spending a year on Rikers Island. But he was only a free man for less than a year. It didn't take long before Jimmy was arrested again for another gun charge. Luckily, he was able to make bail on this charge. However, a few months later, Jimmy caught a homicide case. So he ended up pleading guilty to the gun charge and got the murder case dismissed. Nonetheless, he wasn't just going to walk away without serving a sentence. He got hit with a 5 to 10 year sentence. But while he was in prison, it seems Jimmy found a mentor, a Black Panther leader called Richard Moore. Now, Moore convinced Jimmy to go back to school, and Jimmy agreed. And by the time Jimmy was released in 1988, he had an associate's degree. But make no mistakes, this doesn't mean Jimmy turned away from a life of crime. Instead, Jimmy Henchman became a major player in the dope game. According to some sources, he spent about 3 years hustling in the crack game. But it was also during this period that one of Jimmy's friends advised him to get into the music industry. See, this was when hip-hop was about to enter into its golden era, and a certain rapper called Tupac Shakur was blowing up at the time. Now, Pac wasn't a superstar yet, but everyone knew that this artist was going to be a major player in the game. Jimmy Henchman was introduced to Tupac by Jimmy's friend Haitian Jack, who was also a drug dealer. So, Jimmy tried to sign Tupac and become his manager. But unfortunately for the Henchman, Tupac turned him down. In fact, according to the word on the street, Biggie was the one who told Tupac not to have anything to do with Jimmy Henchman, because Pac and Biggie were still friends and used to hang out with each other. However, Jimmy offered Pac $7,000 to feature on a song by his artist Lil Sean. Pac needed the money, as he was fighting his sexual abuse case at the time. And while Pac was heading to Quad Studios with his homeboy Stretch and all his other homies, he was confronted by 3 men in the lobby of the building. He was robbed and shot 5 times. For many years after the shooting, Pac accused Biggie, Puffy, and other Bad Boy or Junior Mafia members of being behind the shooting. And this incident was what turned the East Coast-West rivalry into a deadly beef that ended up leading to the death of 2 of hip-hop's most iconic rappers. Because before this shooting, Tupac and B.I.G. were actually really good friends. I mean, Biggie even asked Tupac to be his manager. And Jimmy Henchman was also one of those that Pac suspected was behind the robbery that almost got him killed. Because of this, Pac even dissed Henchman on the song Against All Odds. He rapped, "Promised to pay back Jimmy Henchman in due time. I know you niggas is listening. The world is mine. Set me up. Wet me up. Niggas stuck me up. heard the guns bust, but your tricks never shut me up. Now, Jimmy Henchman always denied that he was behind the robbery, but the truth couldn't stay hidden forever. See, in 2011, Jimmy's homeboy Dexter Isaac claimed that Henchman had paid him to rob Tupac. Isaac and Henchman grew up together in Brooklyn, and they had been friends since they were teenagers. Isaac stated that Henchman paid him $2,500 to rob Pac. In fact, Isaac got a pretty good deal. He claimed that Henchman let them keep all the jewelry, and the only thing they had to return to him was a particular ring that Henchman wanted all to himself. Pac was robbed of jewelry worth $35,000. Isaac also stated that Pac's homie Stretch, who was with him when he was robbed, was also in on their plan. Isaac claimed that Stretch was given a quarter brick of crack to betray his friend. And Pac made sure to diss Stretch as well. On the same song, Against All Odds, Pac rapped, "And that nigga that was down for me resting dead. Switch sides. Guess his new friends wanted him dead." But even after all of these, Henchman still denied that he was behind the robbery, and he was never charged for this shooting. Still, Pac wasn't even the only rapper that Jimmy Henchman beefed with. See, 50 Cent and Jimmy Henchman never got along either. You see, Henchman used to be the Game's manager, and you all know that 50 Cent and the Game never saw eye to eye. Now, Henchman believed that the reason that his artist and 50 Cent never got along is because the Game was achieving so much success as a solo artist. Henchman stated that 50 was worried that the Game would be his first G-Unit rapper to outshine him. He also claimed that 50 didn't like the Game because he was friends with many of the people that 50 was beefing with. Henchman believes that this is the reason 50 Cent kicked the Game out of G-Unit. However, their beef didn't end, even after the Game left the label. 50 Cent's right-hand man, Tony Yayo, and another rapper, Lodi Mac, saw Jimmy Henchman's 14-year-old son, Little Henchman, in the streets. Now, some reports say Little Henchman was wearing a G-Unit shirt, while other reports say he was wearing a Czar Entertainment shirt. And Czar Entertainment is the management company that belonged to his father. But irrespective of what shirt he was wearing, Lodi and Yayo pressed him over what he was wearing and ruffled his feathers. They pushed Little Henchman up against the wall, and Yayo allegedly began slapping him, while Lodi Mac even pistol whipped the little boy. Both men were booked on assault charges, but Tony Yayo's charges were dismissed. However, this doesn't mean Jimmy Henchman didn't try to get him in other ways. See, before he even went to court, Yayo's mother was shot up, while his mother, sister, and niece were all in the apartment. But fortunately, none of them were harmed. On the other hand, Lodi Mac did have to face assault charges over the Little Henchman case. He pleaded guilty to aggravated assault and was sentenced to a few years in prison. But during this period, it was actually safer for Lodi Mac, because on the streets, this beef was only getting deadlier. See, just because Yayo's case was dismissed and his mother's house was shot doesn't mean the Henchman was done with him just yet. Jimmy Henchman still tried to take Tony Yayo and 50 Cent out in the same year. While 50 and Yayo were shooting the video for his song, I'll Still Kill, featuring Aiken, Henchman decided to visit them at the set of the music video. Henchman and his goons arrived at the scene, with silencers attached to their guns. But God was on G-Unit's side on this day. See, just before they got out of their car, one of Henchman's homies' guns accidentally went off, and they all had to leave the scene.
On the paperwork, and Henchman and them niggas supposed to come through, and I guess they gun jammed, but we had God on that side, and they backed out on the hit, but we had straps too, and that really was really it.
You said they had silencers?
Yeah.
And this was part of the actual report that came out?
Yeah.
Fortunately, nobody died that day, because one of Henchman's men didn't know how to handle his gun. But even after this incident, Henchman wasn't done just yet. Lodi Mac was released from prison in 2009, and 2 weeks after he became a free man, he was shot in the middle of a street in the Bronx. Everyone believed that Henchman was behind the shooting, and this time, he would eventually face the music for his crimes. In June 2010, Henchman was arrested on charges of cocaine trafficking, money laundering, and witness tampering. See, Henchman ran a drug operation that even El Chapo or Pablo Escobar would be proud of. He ran a drug ring that moved drugs from the West Coast to the East Coast and was bringing him over $11 million a year. He and his crew would ship drugs from LA to New York, and after the drug was sold, they shipped the cash from New York back to LA. The henchmen even reduced transportation costs, as they didn't even have to use their car for this operation. They covered everything in mustard so that the drug dogs couldn't find anything, and shipped it through FedEx and UPS. Henchman's crew was known as the Roseman Organization, and on the 25th of October 2013, he was given a life sentence for this charge. The judge stated that his crimes were astonishing in their breadth, duration, and intensity. And just when you think things couldn't get worse for the henchman, the shooters he hired to kill Lodi Mack flipped on him. There were over 35 witnesses in this trial, and in 2014, he was found guilty and hit with a second life sentence. But don't feel sorry for the henchman, because word on the street is that he is an informant too. See, he allegedly helped the feds put other dealers behind bars. He denied the story, but 50 Cent also came out and said the same thing.
Look, I'm from Southside Jamaica, Queens. I don't like Supreme. I don't like Premium, but he lived the way he actually projected himself. His lifestyle is consistent.
He was true to it.
He never ratted on nobody, just like that. You see what I'm saying? And Jimmy's a different kind of guy. He told everybody. He solved the last 10 years of criminal activity in New York City. It's 10 minutes. The DA said, hold on, chill out, stop. Stop, boy, you're gonna make like I don't even work. The DA asked him to stop. Stop, man. You're gonna make like we're not even working here.